Hi church, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Becky, and today we'll be looking at Mark chapter 5 verses 21 through 43 and focusing on the central truth: Jesus' power is personal and kind.
So, after Jesus had calmed the storm and cast the demons into the pigs, he went back to Galilee where people were excited to see him perform more miracles.
Jesus was probably really tired at this point. He had just returned from a long journey where he had performed miracles, and now he was surrounded by a large crowd. But he still made himself available to people.
One of these people he made himself available to was named Jairus. Jairus was one of the men who took care of the local synagogue and was well respected in his community. But tragedy had struck his house, and Jairus' only daughter was sick and on the verge of dying. So he went to Jesus for help. He didn't care what his community or friends thought. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and begged him to help heal his daughter. He had faith in Jesus himself as Christ that he could make his daughter well.
Jesus responded to Jairus' faith and told him to lead him back to his home. They were in a hurry because the daughter could die at any time. On the way, though, they ran into someone else who was confident in Jesus' ability to heal. A woman, who does not have a name, had been experiencing bleeding for 12 years. According to Jewish purity laws, this meant she was unable to enter the synagogue or participate in most of the daily activities in the community. Up until this point, her life was probably pretty lonely, and so she was desperate to be healed.
Maybe the woman felt ashamed to speak to Jesus because of her sickness, or maybe she was afraid she would be scorned by the local community around her. So instead of approaching him like Jairus did, she reached out and touched the hem of his robe. She had so much faith in Jesus' power that she knew that touching him alone would be all she would need to be healed.
And she was right. As soon as she touched his robes, she was healed. But this did not go unnoticed by Jesus. He stopped in his urgent mission to save Jairus' daughter and asked who had touched him.
The woman pushed through the crowd and approached him, declaring herself healed and that it was the power of Jesus who saved her. She was in awe of what had happened. In response to her faith in him, Jesus declared, "Daughter, your faith has made you well." Not only had he healed her physically, but she was also healed spiritually and was now a child of God.
Jesus did not stay with the woman much longer. He still had another mission. But during his delay, tragedy had struck. A messenger approached them and let Jairus know that in his absence, his daughter had died and that he should just leave Jesus alone. There was no point. But Jesus turned to Jairus and told him not to be afraid, and so they continued into the house.
The house was full of mourners, people who came to put on a show of grief after someone died. They did not necessarily care about the family or the dead loved one. When Jesus entered, he said not to worry because the girl was just sleeping. They laughed at Jesus and disregarded what he had said.
What Jesus meant, though, was that with his power, death is only temporary, like sleeping. People believed that Jesus could heal people, but they were not aware, or they refused to acknowledge that he had the power to do so much more.
Jesus approached the body of the daughter and took her hand in his. With a gentle voice, he used a form of endearment that meant a little lamb. It was a word a loving father would use towards their daughter. He told this little lamb that it was time for her to wake up now.
And she did. Not only that, but she stood up and started walking around. The people around them were amazed. Their little girl was alive.
Jesus, still the attentive father, told them to make sure she had something to eat because she was hungry. And then he left the house.
Both these stories illustrate the amazing power of Jesus, but they also illustrate his tenderness for us. Jesus has the power to save us, but it is the love and compassion he feels towards us that makes him want to do so. He acknowledged the woman's faith and allowed her to declare her healing to the community, which means she would be accepted. He acted like a kind father to the little girl who had died. This is the Lord we are called to worship. He is powerful, personal, and kind. He pays attention, notices, and provides according to each individual's needs. He is one we can trust, and he is worth all our love.